This is your number one source for all things comics, movies, and pop culture. It's Geek Week with Chris and Nick.
You're tuned into Geek Week.
I'm Chris Natale.
And I'm Nick Rotundo.
To all those listening, thank you for joining our discussion.
And if you would like to hear any of our old episodes, be sure to check out our YouTube account, which is posted on our Facebook account at www.facebook.com/geekweek885. And be sure to check out our Instagram account at geekweek885, which just posted a video there for our preview today.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Go check it out. You get a good laugh out of it. So now we're going to bring you Dave's Picks of the Week. Dave is the owner of Comics on the Green in Scranton. If you're ever in the area, be sure to stop in. They have a great selection of back issues, graphic novels, action figures, and more.
So this week, Dave's picks are, well, let's start off with the first one, Moonshine number 6. This is by Image Comics. The writer is Brian Azzarello, a great guy there. I think we know him from a couple other things. And the artist is Eduardo Risso. Moonshine, Part 6, End of Story Arc. In the final chapter of the opening story arc, old scores are settled and much blood is shed as gangster Lou Perlo finally comes face to face with the monstrous werewolf that he's been hunting. That's been hunting him for months, I should say.
The next comic is Jughead the Hunger by Archie Comic Publications. Writer Frank Thierry, artist Michael Walsh. It's a brand new one-shot special. Jughead Jones has always had an insatiable appetite, but what if his hunger came from a sinister place? When a murderous menace is on the prowl, taking the lives of some of the most well-known and esteemed inhabitants of Riverdale, Jughead and his family's dark legacy comes to light.
So, and then the final one is X-Men Prime number 1 by Marvel Comics. Writer is Mark Guggenheim. Artist is Len Lashley and Various, as well as Ardian Syaf is the cover artist. This is called Resurrection Begins Here. This is a big event that is supposed to be a great jumping point on from the new revamped X-Men family titles. So, in the wake of their war with the Inhumans, the X-Men are at crossroads. Where do they go from here? Luckily, one beloved X-Men has the answer to that question. Xavier's dream comes full circle as Kitty Pryde returns to the X-Men, ready to lead them in their mission to protect a world that hates and fears them. The next chapter of the X-Men saga starts here.
So we're getting to this week's topic. Could the science of comics/movies actually work in real life or be possible? And we did this by watching some Nerdist videos by Kyle Hill. He does a great job there. And Nick, what are your picks for this?
So yeah, a lot of Because Science videos. Definitely go check those out. But the first one we've got is Star Wars Lightsabers, which I'm sure both Chris and I here are very excited to hear about this one. Can we make one? Can we make a real one? Well, they may look like laser weapons, but they're actually plasma-based. A high-energy plasma is emitted from the hilt of the lightsaber by a supercharged sci-fi battery contained by magnetic fields and curved back in on itself in a tight ring. This has to be curved plasma beams, otherwise, they just shoot off into space, killing everyone that they get in contact with. However, when coming in contact with weapons or other weapons, objects, body parts, anything like that in real life, the plasma would want to shoot out and flail all over the place, like, for example, the Ghostbusters proton beams. So, also holding that much plasma in your hand could cause lightning to strike you, or for the air around you to ignite in flames, depending on the atmosphere. The hum of the lightsaber also could be considered its thunder, very similar to the sound of a lightning strike, which, ironically, would make the lightsaber beam its quote-unquote lightning. Thinner, and, these real-life lightsabers made of plasma would be a lot thinner than they would be in the movies, and it wouldn't be a solid beam. They could pass through each other. So if Chris and I here were to have two lightsabers in real life and we decided to clash them together, they just fall right through each other. Nothing would really happen. But would still burn body parts, flesh, objects, etc. So.
Wowzers! Well, that was a lot there. I I've always, when you're a kid, you're always like, oh, the lightsabers exist. You're watching Star Wars movies, like, oh, this is so cool. And you go to Toys R Us or something like that. You get a lightsaber and you battle your friend, and it's you guys either dress up or get in a character, and it's a fun time. I gotta say, like, I remember having toy lightsabers when I was a kid. I always wondered, will this ever be real in the future? Like, that's the nerd in me that's asking that, obviously, but it just makes me wonder, and just seeing the science behind that makes it pretty more interesting, I think.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I think laser-based, plasma-based weapons, I mean, that could come at some point in the future. It just obviously we have to harness it and understand how to contain it in certain areas.
Yeah, well, what's your next pick, man?
Well, knowing me, the second pick is Spider-Man's web shooters, which not just about the web shooters, but what you find out about this is going to be very, enlightening. So in the comics, there's spider silk, stuff like that, but in the comic books, Peter Parker creates a chemical compound, which no one knows exactly what it is, but they know that, it's some sort of chemical compound that he creates because he's a science whiz. So the web fluid is a shear thinning liquid, virtually solid until a shearing force is applied to it, rendering it fluid, whose exact formula is unknown, obviously, as I just said, but is also related to nylon. On contact with air, the long-chain polymer knits and forms a extremely tough, flexible fiber with extraordinary adhesive properties. The web fluid's adhesive quality diminishes rapidly with exposure to air. So, for example, at one point in the comics, Peter Parker actually tries to sell the compound, but no one wants to buy it because it's such a short-lasting adhesive. So, he keeps it for himself, and sooner or later, Spider-Man. But the tech, the wrist gauntlets, how do those work? Well, the fluid itself is officially described as being pressurized at 300 psi, but the actual number has been known to change. Web shooters require a 65-pound pressure to trigger them, the middle and ring fingers placed on the palms, which have triggers put on them. The spinneret mechanisms in each web shooter are machined from stainless steel except the turbine component, which is machined out of a block of Teflon, and the two turbine bearings, which are made of amber and artificial sapphire. The wristlets and web fluid cartridges, the latter of which Spider-Man wears on his belt underneath his costume's tunic, are mainly nickel-plated annealed brass. So what's weird about this is, if we figure out the chemical compound, I'm sure it's able to be created. It might not have the same effect as it does in the comics, but this is where it gets, pretty crazy. Scientists are actually trying to work on combining goat's milk with genetically modified spider silk. So basically, cross genetics between goats and spiders to create a really strong spider silk and strong webbing. So or they also put watered down carbon nanotubes on spiders to create stronger webbing / spider silk. So this now has even become in use because they're trying to build something that's even stronger than Kevlar. So picture a complete bulletproof shirt made out of spider silk. That could happen.
I heard goat's milk and spider. I thought spider goat does whatever a spider goat does. Can it swing from a tree? No, it can't because it's a spider goat. That's all I heard. Like, I think that's cool, and I knew you were gonna have fun with that one just because as anyone else can tell, you're a huge love for Spider-Man. If they can't tell, they're blind. So
oh, of course. But yeah, no, I think that is really interesting to read about because the idea of the uses for it now. Because even though that in the comics they say he uses it to swing for building the building, it wears off within an hour or so. It's a adhesive, that kind of thing. But the idea of scientists and the military trying to build better Kevlar, that's nuts.
That's pretty interesting. I'm sure there will be more kind of experiments with that in the future and more, I guess, progression maybe. But yeah, that's interesting to know.
So with that, we will move on to my last choice, which is the xenomorph from Alien. It's acidic blood. Now this one, I think this one out of all the three is a little more scientific than the rest. that I chose. So in the movie Alien, the xenomorph facehugger, it lets out some of its blood when it gets cut. They're trying to take it off of the face of one of the crew members, and instantly shoots out some blood, burning through 3 metal floors of the spaceship. This would be a type of acid. Acids tend to break apart and, they're a product of a lot of hydrogen ions or protons. The pH scale is a very big thing that comes into factor here, which is it ranges from 0 to 14. This measures how acidic or basic a substance is. At 7, a mixture is neutral. The ions that make it acidic or basic cancel each other out. At 0, something is very acidic, like battery acid. At 14, though, something is very basic, like bleach. So it can also go above 14 or below 0, but our blood, personally, can't even get close to that. Our blood is mostly water. So because of that, we're somewhat neutral. We're about a 7.3 pH level for the human blood. So if our blood goes below 7 on a pH scale for even just 3 seconds, we slip into a coma and die from acidosis, which is nuts. But nowhere near metal burning levels. However, one of the most feared chemicals known to man, hydrofluoric acid, has a pH of 2.1. It's so powerful that it burns through your nerves, and the melting of your skin, if you get it on you, is painless.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So hydrofluoric acid mixed with fluorine and antimony creates a whole nother compound. It is, excuse me, this is going to be fun to say, fluoroantimonic acid, the strongest acid known to man, and its pH level. You ready for this, Chris? Negative 31.3.
Yikes.
Yeah, fun stuff there. So, overall, the xenomorph blood could be fluoroantimonic acid and liquid hydrofluoric acid combined, since the human liquid part of blood is water. So if you decide to put the water and the fluoroantimonic acid together to create the blood, you're going to get some explosion. They don't mix well. So if you're going to do some liquid part of blood as hydrofluoric acid combined with fluoroantimonic acid, you could see some xenomorph blood there.
Wow. Well, I always thought, just from seeing the movies, that, the aliens were deathly between, their tail, their pretty much their teeth and everything else. Like
the tiny little mouth inside of them.
They're literally like little, like they're like big ninja things that just, creep around and like get you with their tail or something else. And then their blood is even like worse than that, because it just melts through whatever. And they're pretty deathly threats, man. And I don't know, I've always been a big fan of like the Alien and Predator series and stuff like that. And I always thought that was really cool. It's very different form of pop culture here. And I've seen most of the movies. I prefer the original Alien and the original Predator over most. But I did see it was the newer Prometheus.
Yeah, that's
and I actually
prequels.
really enjoyed that. And other people give it a lot of flack, but me and my cousin sat down, we watched this, and it was crazy to see how an alien like goes from being, a small organism to the big thing that you see in the movies. And you see that in this movie. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, I think with the prequels, they're kind of like, and now there's a new movie coming out, Alien Covenant. So that's going to bring back Sigourney Weaver. I'm very excited about that. But, this is a whole prequel, and then now they're doing another sequel with it. They're going really realistic with that, which I like, because, a lot of people now, for movies and stuff like that, books, comic books even, they reach out to scientists to make sure it actually sounds scientifically correct.
Well, that's smart. Like, they're doing that extra research goes a long way. And it honestly, if your fans are like, people that love science and kind of know that stuff, and they see that, the facts that are wrong are presented in this kind of pop culture and media and things like that, you probably lose your fan base, like, in that way. We at least lose part of the science fan base part of it,
Oh yeah, without a doubt. So I'm very happy to see that, like, even movies like Alien, it's something that actually could be attainable.
Yeah, man. I don't know how I feel about this new movie coming out as far as Aliens. I think they overdid it with making like Alien v Predator and all that other stuff. It was just kind of intense and crazy, and plot was thrown everywhere, and characters were thrown everywhere, and it was okay. I will always stick to the originals. So, yeah, man. I think the science, just kind of like doing this kind of research and finding out the science behind things that we love in pop culture is, something. It's something great, because we don't, like, going into this, I never knew any of these facts about this stuff. I never knew anything about Spider-Man's web shooters like being kind of almost a realistic kind of thing. Nor did I know about like the lightsaber thing. I didn't know any of the science behind it, or even the blood of the aliens. I just didn't know. I knew what I saw in the movies and what I've seen in comics and things like that. But I like that Nerdist went into, these three things and gave us these facts, because I think it's good to know. I think it's fun for people who enjoy science. For people who don't really know what they're talking about or know science in that way, it's also kind of fun because you don't know it, and I think knowledge is important. So, learn new things like this, just progresses your like education and things like that. So, exactly. Especially in pop culture, like your education of pop culture. Let me just be clear about that.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. We are continuing our topic of, could the science of comics and movies actually work in real life? As we said before, Nerdist.com and also the YouTube channel for Nerdist. Go check it out, because science. And it's time for Chris to talk about his 3 picks. So, Chris, why don't you start us off?
All right, so Kyle did one where the Flash, could Nightcrawler beat Flash in a race? So Flash is widely considered to be the fastest superhero. He can stop time and sprint beyond light speed. But Nightcrawler has a speed loophole. He travels between large distances in an instant, which is mathematically really fast as well. And the assumptions that, Kyle went off of in this video were that Flash moves at light speed. So that's 300,000 kilometers per second. And he accelerates up to this speed, and this is assuming that he accelerates up to I can't talk. My God. Okay, he gets up to this speed instantaneously. That's what it means. Oh my
Chris,
gosh.
You're talking too fast.
I really stop. So no comic book references say otherwise about this. And Nightcrawler may have a common teleportation distance up to 3 kilometers. He can teleport mostly instantaneously, but not as fast as the Flash. And it's his teleporting as fast as in human reaction time, which is 1 millisecond. So what he did was he went through four different races. All right. So the first race was a 3,000 meter dash. So in the first, him showing this, both Flash and Nightcrawler move so fast that our human vision can't register it. You need a camera with the frame rate in the trillions to see the Flash move, apparently.
Whoa.
So what he did was he kind of, took this first race and made it 10,000 times slower than the normal speed that it was at. And this is also same thing, 3,000 meters. Flash beats Nightcrawler while Nightcrawler is going his common teleportation distance. One fact that he had was that Nightcrawler can teleport more than 3 kilometers in Uncanny X-Men Volume 1, issues 467 to 468. Kurt is shown to teleport up to 80 kilometers. So that was cool to see, because I didn't know that. I had no idea. I didn't even know there were comics that, showed that or talked about that. That was cool to see. The second race, and keep in mind, this is at the same speed, 10,000 times slower than the normal speed that you'd see a normal race. It was the 80,000, my gosh, I can't talk today, guys. I am sorry. 80,000 meter dash. Flash crosses the finish line in around 2 seconds. Nightcrawler takes around 10 seconds to cross the finish line. Another fact that he found was that in X-Men Second Coming, Nightcrawler teleports himself in a dying effort up to 650 kilometers, which I thought was astounding, because I didn't know he could do that. Like, I was like, wow, Nightcrawler can go that far, but it was in a dying effort, so it was his last, hurrah, I guess you could say. That's amazing. So they took a third race, and they looked at it and they said, all right, let's do this. 650,000 meters. Nightcrawler wins. And this is crazy, because this race would be over before one of our neurons, wow, I can't talk, could fire twice. That's how fast this race would go. And the results of these initial assumptions would be that if the finish line is under 300 kilometers, Flash will come out on top by running there at light speed. But if the finish line is further than 300 kilometers, Nightcrawler's teleportation ability to travel long distances would determine him as the winner. But the thing about this, they want to get across that the Flash is not always the fastest man on Earth. But you got to think, in order for Nightcrawler to win this race, to beat him, he might have to use all his strength and teleport far enough. And he could even die in doing this. So, just racing and doing this to try to beat the Flash, he could die. But he still could beat him more than 300 kilometers. Like, anything further than that, he beats him, which is awesome. Because, you'd think Flash would win, and people would assume that Flash would always win. But this was cool to see. Yeah, well, obviously. But, this race... it was different. I like how they took a DC character and an X-Men character who's known for... The X-Men character is known for his, quick agility and things like that, his fighting style, and, teleportation's his big thing, and he's great at it.
Oh, very true.
I didn't even think of this until, Nerdist, I saw this video, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So I had to talk about it. But yeah, man, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree completely with you. I never thought I'd even think about this because, even looking at, for example, the Flash TV show, you have some breachers in Vibe, which is Cisco, and recently in the series Gypsy. So, they teleport, whereas Barry runs really fast. Mm-hmm. So, I'd never thought of, having them race each other. I always pictured, for example, either Supergirl versus Flash or, another speedster, or even if you're doing the minute matchups with Ismahawk, Quicksilver versus Flash, who would win? So to me, it was always Flash was the fastest man alive. He's the the fastest person. So I never even thought of taking teleportation and speed and putting it against each other. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty cool. I like the idea of it, but I think my money's still on Flash. I think there's something.
Well, yeah. If Nightcrawler has to die in order to beat him, obviously your money's going to be on Flash. My money would be on Flash too, but I'm glad that Nightcrawler goes down with a fighting chance.
Oh yeah.
I like that about this video. The next one I'm going to talk about, guys, is one of my favorite big monsters, Godzilla. His atomic breath, and why it's worse than what's shown in movies, pretty much. And so he's been spewing this atomic fire for over 60 years. It's blue, which makes it more destructive than one would think. According to Godzilla's canon, it generates an atomic blast inside itself and directing all the energy outwards from its mouth. The majority of the energy, 70 to 100%, is in the blast shockwave and heat. The shockwave from an atomic blast is where most of the destruction that you're familiar with comes from. If you were at the center of a fireball like that, you would literally be vaporized.
Oh my god.
So when Godzilla unleashes this atomic breath, it doesn't look like this. Maybe we're seeing the other 5% of an atomic blast energy, which is the radiation part. That's the assumption that, Kyle makes about this and from their research. And I said, okay, all right. So it may not be the most destructive part of an atomic blast, but it's the scariest part of Godzilla's breath, the radiation. So here's some stuff for you. When an atomic bomb goes off, radiation comes streaming out in the form of gamma rays, electrons, neutrons, and alpha particles. Humans are susceptible to this because it's ionizing radiation. Now stick with that term, ionizing radiation. It has the energy to knock electrons off of atoms and smash molecular structures like our DNA. This form of radiation could also ionize the atmospheric gases around an atomic blast. Oxygen, nitrogen, argon, things like that. When electrons are ripped from these gases atoms, they get excited to the point where they have to shed the excess energy in the form of photons of light. Oxygen and nitrogen make up the majority of our atmosphere, and when they get ionized, they emit photons of blue light. This is a real-world example that Kyle had used. On April 26, 1986, at 1:23 a.m., a few survivors were streaming out of the failing Chernobyl reactor that began its meltdown just minutes before it had its meltdown. One of the survivors, Alexander Yuvchenko, reported there was a beam of blue light extending from the top of the failing reactor out into infinity. And it was probably ionizing radiation. And if you think about the color of this, it's also the same color you see coming out of Godzilla's mouth. So this is what his atomic breath really is. A nuclear meltdown in its mouth. And a funny thing about this, when I had told a couple of my friend Molly said that Godzilla is a mobile Chernobyl. And I thought that was pretty hilarious. I gotta
like
say,
that.
I thought it was funny. So pretty much, if Godzilla's atomic breath is dominated by a bluish, greenish light in over 50% of the movies he's in, the real power is probably coming from ionizing radiation. Not so much, blast wave or heat. We see the blue glow of ionized Earth air much more often every time we see a lightning bolt. So every time Godzilla uses atomic breath, there is enough ionizing radiation and these are the facts that I was like, my gosh, he could really do some damage. He could transmute, by using this breath, he can transmute particles in the ground and make them radioactive. He can give an entire city cancer. He can make any city or place that he uses this breath uninhabitable for thousands of years, which is clearly worse than destroying a few buildings. These are the facts that I found out about that, and I was like, okay, so Godzilla is a lot more deadlier than I thought he was, even though he's already a big, dinosaur, hybrid thing, and it's like he can give an entire city cancer, man. And I'm just like,
why have we not seen this in a movie already? Like the devastation and after effect, everyone has cancer.
They can't show you that. They won't. I mean, they water it down for people who are interested in this kind of entertainment / pop culture. And
well, yeah, of course.
I mean, I like seeing him take down a few big monsters and buildings, and it's just cool to watch. But in reality, he would probably kill a lot of people. He would think of this, making a land or place uninhabitable for thousands of years. That how many generations that kills off?
Oh yeah, I think
that's a lot.
Honestly, that could lead.
And I'm laughing, but I'm nervously laughing. It's not like I'm a ha-ha. It's like oh God, don't do that.
If Godzilla was real, I don't think there would be anything left on Earth.
No,
at all.
No. No. This is why I look forward to seeing him fight King Kong eventually, because I can't wait to see that go down.
Yeah,
especially with the technology we have around now and the CGI and things like that. I'm curious to see what that fight's gonna look like.
Oh yeah. So I know. Big shout out to my uncle, Uncle Marco. I know you're listening at some point, whether it's on the YouTube channel. Katie and Marco are showing you this, but shout out to you since we just talked about Godzilla, one of your favorite monsters and characters of all time.
Godzilla is awesome. My gripe with the movie, just to get my little 2 cents in there, is that they didn't have enough Godzilla fighting monsters. It was just they focused a lot on the soldier aspect, and I get it, but I wish I saw a little more monster fighting. Apparently King Kong was really good with that though, so I didn't get to see it, but I want to. But anyway, I'm going to get into my next pick. Jessica Jones, Mind Control, already exists in nature? ? All right, so I thought Kilgrave was a really cool villain in there, and I thought his powers were awesome because he's very intimidating. I mean, just because he's a skinny British guy doesn't mean he can't. That's kind of mean, but I'm just saying he's a great actor and I like him. I'm not downplaying him at all. He's awesome. He's fantastic in this series. His power is amazing, but there are actually creatures in nature that can do what he does, and I'm going to get into them. So fungus cordyceps or fungi cordyceps, which mind control certain species of ants by landing on them and extending tendrils into the ant's brain, forcing the ant to move away from the colony, death grip the underside of a branch or leaf, and then once it's there, it dies. The fungus explodes out of its brain, of the ant's head, and it rains down spores on unsuspecting ants below. So, yeah. Anyway, the emerald cockroach wasp. Mind controls cockroaches, uses a highly adapted stinger to do brain surgery. It injects a cocktail of chemicals in a certain region of the cockroach's brain. Bear with me, guys. I know it's a lot. It can't move after that unless the wasp decides to pull it by its antenna. The wasp then pulls it into a den or small hole and seals the cockroach with an egg that slowly eats it alive.
That's one way to get rid of a cockroach.
Anyway, so the next one, parasite. It's like a parasite known as the horsehair worm. Once it infects its host, it forces the host to commit suicide in water, and then the worm starts to wiggle out of the host body through holes chewed in the sides. Yikes. So, in Jessica Jones, Kilgrave emits a virus, and once you breathe in that virus, you are now infected and are subjected to do pretty much whatever he wants you to. I think they made a reference that said, he's like, I once told a guy to go screw himself. Can you imagine how many different things that he would do to himself in that situation? He said that to Jessica, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to think about that.
I don't either.
Anyway, so there's also like different kinds of viruses. One is known as rabies, and I never knew this about it, but apparently it's known to, when it affects warm-blooded animals. So it gets inside them, makes them rabid, and that animal can then bite and scratch another animal to transmit the virus and infect other animals. So literally it could become like a crazy virus / contagion that just spreads and spreads and spreads. So that was interesting to see. The next one is Dinocampus conilii, or coniale. I don't know how to really say it. It's a parasitic wasp that lays eggs inside ladybugs and infects them with a virus that we've only recently discovered. And that's just like scientists and things like that. So it's kind of still, getting looked at. Once a wasp egg hatches inside a ladybug and then leaves it, it spins its own cocoon underneath the ladybug. The ladybug is then mind controlled into protecting this cocoon from all predators until it dies. So imagine this ladybug who's trying to live its own life, and then all of a sudden this happens to it, and then it has to sit there until it dies on this cocoon.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So the next one is Toxoplasma gondii. It's a parasite that infects up to a third of the human population. It changes the behavior of rats so that they no longer fear the smell of cats, so they can eat more often, and the parasite can reproduce in the cat's stomach and complete its life cycle. Oh, my gosh. So the evidence about this parasite is like kind of shaky, but it's been linked to increases in the rate of schizophrenia, depression, and even suicide risk. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on all of that? Because I'm pretty sure that was a lot to handle.
Yeah, it was. I feel like everything I know is a lie, and I'm being mind controlled now. But no, like I've actually even read about this one thing where back in the day when slavery existed, they used to feed the slaves like these mushrooms or something, or like some sort of like gross like fungus or something, and it would mess with their heads, basically creating like The Walking Dead. They'd just literally be zombies, and they would work in the fields of all hours of the day. So basically they wouldn't sleep, they wouldn't eat, they'd just pick cotton and work in your field the entire time. So this is real. As much as it really scares you, it's real. So I don't know what to say here. That's evolution, I guess. That's the way of nature.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that these are some really cool facts. I actually went on my way and watched other videos as well.
Oh yeah.
And they come up with things like how tough is Luke Cage's skin, and how I can't remember the other one that they how do Pokeballs work.
There's one with the PIM particles, which was very, very science heavy. So
we're both mass comm majors, so we didn't want to get too sciencey into it because we didn't want to just not know what we're talking about. We wanted to at least have some decent idea when we talk about this to because we kind of wanted to have a simpler kind of scientific take on this.
Exactly. But yeah, no, out of pretty much anything you've ever heard of, what's the one big thing that you were like, wow, I can't believe this is actually attainable or something like that in science with anything pop culture, movies or video games or comic books, anything like that? What's the one thing from science?
Well, honestly, I didn't even when I hear mind control at all, I just think, oh, it's fake. That this shocked me, this whole Kilgrave thing. And I always thought, like I said, Kilgrave is awesome. He's an awesome villain, and you underestimate him. And it's he could pretty much start a nuclear war by just saying start a nuclear war, and people will have the desire in their brain to do it. They know that they don't want to do it, but they have the desire that they want to do it. So it's they're fighting, but they can't control their body, their functions. So it's someone's seeing what they're doing, but they can't stop it.
No,
and that's terrifying.
Yeah, I think for me too. I think the two other ones that were really scary for me were the Xenomorph's blood, and it was, I believe, the second one you had. Oh, the Godzilla's breath, because just radiation and acid just scares the crud out of me. Because just imagine coming into a room and someone spills the acid and the entire floor just evaporates. Something could happen where a nuke goes off, and it couldn't even be as close to as bad as what Godzilla's breath could be like. If someone were to harness that, it'd be the end. In the words of, dare I say, Alien, game over, man, game over.
Yeah. Seriously, the Godzilla facts were definitely really interesting though too, because my girlfriend and I had just watched the newest Godzilla together, and like just watching like, you know, his tail light up blue, and then when I saw the movie, I remember seeing it in theaters with my buddy, watching it light up blue. I got so excited. I'm like, now that I realize what it actually can do and what actually comes out of his mouth, I'm like, I'm kind of, you know, I feel bad for the people that are anywhere near that.
Oh yeah,
you know, those people in the movies, like, because he's in a city and he's using it. You know.
Well, hey, you know who didn't have to suffer here? Bryan Cranston. It's right from the beginning of the movie. Bye. That's the one thing that I was so upset about. Everybody was like, Bryan Cranston's going to be in this movie. And it's just, nah.
Yeah, I feel like he could have had more potential in that movie. I didn't want him just to be killed off because I think he's a great actor.
The guy's a living legend.
Like Breaking Bad, you know, what's he in the Power Rangers movie? Zordon in the Power Rangers movie.
He actually, speaking of which, when he did Power Rangers, when the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers came out, Saban and like the people who created it actually went to Bryan Cranston, and he did a bunch of the monster sounds and voices for like the random monsters that Rita Repulsa creates, as well as like just like screaming and like ugh kind of thing, like fighting them. So like the putty monsters, all those things. He did voices for that. So that's why the Blue Ranger is called Billy Cranston in honor of Bryan Cranston.
That's cool. I didn't even know that. I haven't seen this movie, but I mean, part of me wants to because it's out of curiosity. But another part of me wants to see King Kong Skull Island because, you know, I love those big monster like movies. They're just fun and entertaining for sure. Like I like Peter Jackson's King Kong, and I thought that was like watching King Kong fight the two T-Rexes and just obliterate them. Was just amazing.
And then Jack Black just popping in.
Yeah, it was. I didn't even care about the people in the movie. I was more like,
I love
Kong?
The graphics,
give me some Kong fights. Yeah,
the scar on his eye.
I think he makes this one Kong look a little, you know, not great.
Yeah,
I like the Peter Jackson like version compared to, you know, this version.
And how do you feel about? I mean, like this version of Godzilla? We've grown up so much with like the idea of Godzilla in this, like a man in a Godzilla suit, like just kind of walking through a tiny little fake town. I think it's
cool to see the progression of movies back from when they were created to the new stuff that's being put out today. It's interesting. I haven't watched any of the older Godzilla movies, but I've been like, you know what? Like, I respect them for what they are. It might not have been the greatest, but at the time, that's what they had, you know? And it's cool to see just how, you know, it went from practical effects in costume to like CGI, and like, the CGI is done well. Like Godzilla looked awesome in this new movie, and you know King Kong looks good too. But like I said, I'm a Peter Jackson like King Kong that version of a fan because I like the scar in his eye, like you said. It makes him look more worn. It makes him look like he's been in a lot of fights, and it makes him look like he's just trying to survive. And I think that's great.
Oh yeah. So how about this one? Right, we talked about Predator and Alien. I'm sure you've seen the fan film as well as the comic book series of Batman versus Predator.
I have.
Would you want to see that on the big screen?
That would be. See, that's mixing two pop culture like, you know, icons together. I would want to. It'd be cool to see it. I know they've done Batman Dead End. I don't know if you've seen that fan film.
Yes, that
to me was awesome, and I think that was enough for me. I think seeing it like in theaters might be a little much because, you know, DC's trying to
even if it's animated though.
Animated, you'd have to do like rated R. Obviously, you'd have to see blood because you couldn't. Because like Predator is just known to kill, and you know Batman's not. So it'd be cool to see those two forces go at it. I definitely want to read the Batman v Predator comics, just see how they even bring the Predator into like Batman's world, or vice versa, how they bring Batman into the Predator's world. You know,
yeah, same
it'd be interesting.
Here. And then plus, of course, you know the end of that fan film Dead End with the alien on the roof jumping down. I think, you know, that xenomorph blood could do some damage on some batarangs.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I'm sure it could. In the part of that fan film, I like that Batman had when he got the batarangs and then like he used them as like I guess assassin knives in a sense because the way he gripped them and the sharp ends of the batarangs on each side of his hand and he fought with them. I thought that was so cool. I usually you don't see Batman do that, but
he is a ninja.
Yeah, but you like in that to me, I've never seen him actually do that in comics. I've never seen Batman take his batarangs and fight with them. You know, I mean, until I saw All-Star Batman, that's when things like, get really like Batman uses a chainsaw in that comic, for God's sake.
The bat chainsaw.
Yeah, if you want to call it that. It was
everything has to be bats, Chris.
It was funny because in that, I think it was the first issue. It's when he's fighting Killer Moth and Black Spider, and Black Spider actually has like these cool like mechanical arms on the sides of him, not like kind of like Doc Ock in a sense, but like they're holding guns, and Batman takes a chainsaw to those arms, and then is just holding Black Spider, and Killer Moth like gets up. He's like, "Dude, where are you, Black Spider?" And then like looks up and then sees Batman holding him, and like Batman just gives him a glare, and he just runs the other way. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like this comic is amazing.
That's
to me,
great.
it's like Batman at his he has to do his things to survive. Like he has to do a lot to survive, and in this All-Star Batman series, and so far I've read the first 4 or 5 issues, and I've enjoyed it. The Two-Face in that is probably the Two-Face I'd want to see on screen. He's just the plan that he has in this. He literally says, if you don't kill Batman by the end of this day or so, I'm going to release all the information that I have on everyone in the world. And that's on every villain. That's on all these villains. So all these villains are going after him. All his major rogues and even other villains that aren't really that known are going after Batman. And eventually, Black Mask, Penguin, and I forget the other guy. I think it was his name is Great White. They're all like mob bosses. They send KG Beast after Batman.
Oh my God, that's awesome!
And he looks really cool, I gotta say. I mean, I know I just segued into All-Star Batman, but it's just from thinking about like Batman Dead End and him versing Predator and aliens. Dude, it's just so cool. I love seeing Batman put in a situation like that because he's just a man who, I mean, obviously has great detective skills and ninja skills, fighting skills, everything, but he's still a man at the end of that. He has to survive in some way, shape, or form. He's not Superman. He can't just take acid on his arm and no, it's nothing.
Exactly.
It'll actually hurt him, and that's what makes Batman more interesting to me than other characters. He has to survive.
Yeah. All right, so last question. Ready? Out of the DCEU or the MCU, what type of science or technology do you want to see brought in from the comics now? Like anything that hasn't been done yet?
I want to see Batman have drones, like bat drones. I've seen it in Kingdom Come when he's super old and he has drones patrolling Gotham City. I'm seeing in this new comic that they're talking about, it's where Batman travels to another world where he rules over a certain world. It's called Dark Forge or something like that, and that's the comic series coming out I think this summer. And dude, it looks pretty cool. I think it'd be cool to see just bat drones flying around. What do you think?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's the reverse of Injustice, right? It'd be kind
of the reverse of Injustice, Batman. But I feel like Batman would, I think he'd be more of a threat. No offense to Superman in this, but I feel like he'd be more of a threat just because how smart he is, and how he thinks of a lot. He thinks of almost everything.
Oh yeah, I agree. But for me, I think the one thing I would want to see is between two things. I want to see either the Iron Spider suit come in or Tony Stark having. They do have the Bleeding Edge suit. They do have the Extremist suit, but I want to see the real that suit is built inside of him, and it just kind of comes out, and he progresses to put the armor on through his skin.
I gotta say that is really cool too, and I see them going. I could see them going there with Tony because everybody loves just the Iron Man suit. When the movie came out, everybody's yeah, I mean that, but also the fact of the Iron Man suit's so cool. It's just different. Everyone after the Iron Man movie, when it came out, I think in 2008, I want to say. When the first movie came out, everybody wanted an Iron Man suit. Every single kid and adult was I want one of those, man. And they've been really changing up his suit as they go through the movies. I think in Civil War, he was in a plane and the suit was built into his chair, and then he just flew out while his plane was going in a different direction. And Nick Benny, I'm gonna put names on it, was next to me. He's like, oh my God. He freaked out, and I was just Benny,
as much
it's
as you guys
breathe.
didn't like that movie.
Yeah, I'm not getting
that,
into I'm not getting
awesome.
into my
that was awesome.
Yeah, that part was really cool. I really like what they do with Tony's suits. And I think I like seeing Iron Man more incorporated in other movies than having his own solo movies, because after his first movie, it kind of just went downhill for me.
I do agree on that a little bit, but everybody's making the joke that Spider-Man Homecoming is Iron Man 4. But you know what? Hey, if Tony's still around, if Robert Downey Jr. is still doing movies, I'm happy. That's all I care about.
I think it's cool that he's the mentor, because you saw the relationship in Civil War when he went to his house, and now Iron Man is helping him in his own movie. I think that's pretty cool, and I liked what we saw in the trailer. With the little Iron Man bots on the sides of the bus, and not the bus. I think it was something like that. The ship, and it was pushing.
Yeah,
it
on
together.
the Staten Island ferry.
Yeah, there you go. And it was pushing it together. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep. I wrote on that a couple times. So with that, looks like our time is up for this week. Thank you all again for joining us. This has been Geek Week with Chris and Nick. Once again,
I'm Chris Natali.
And I am Nick Rotundo.
Again, if you'd like to hear any of our older episodes, be sure to check out our YouTube account, which is posted on our Facebook account at www.facebook.com/geekweek885. Be sure to like us on there, guys. Subscribe to our channel. Share with all your family and friends. We really appreciate it. And, be sure to check out our Instagram account at geekweek885. You'll find a new video up there, and it's actually pretty funny if I do say so myself. But yeah, we're excited.
So with that, be sure to tune in next week to hear us talk about our next topic, the comic book video game franchises and how to expand them. We see so many Spider-Man video games. We see so many Ultimate Alliance, Batman games. How can we progress and create a Superman game, a Flash game, and so on? Like, all these different characters need their own video games, I feel like. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We'll see you next week.
That was Geek Week with Chris and Nick. Be sure to tune in next week at 6 p.m.